Welcome, everyone. This is Yvonne Davis and David Seal of the Rocky Mountain Compassionate Communication Network, and we're here for another day of Unleash Your Creativity, a combination of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron and Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. So today we are in week 5. That means we're exploring recovering a sense of possibility. So David took me through an exercise at the end of week 4, and in it I was having a hard time getting some clarity. And all I really remember about it is I kept saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And then finally, I got some clarity. And what I learned from that was that the reason why I kept saying, I don't know, and I didn't have clarity, and I felt confused, vague, uncertain, overwhelmed, and kept saying, I don't know, was because I was afraid to get clarity, because if I got clarity, I would have to make a decision, and I was afraid, what if I make the wrong decision? So that's where all the vagueness and fog was coming from. It was just fear. So I got clarity, and I actually feel much better now. I realized that there was nothing to be afraid of after all. Of course, I understand, why we have fear, why we're afraid to make decisions, because we think we'll make the wrong decision. But that's what brings us back to the idea that you can't really make a wrong decision because all outcomes are equal. So I feel like I have a lot more energy now. I definitely do, because I'm not wasting all that time obfuscating myself and confusing myself, putting all that vagueness and fog around me actually took a lot of energy. Now that I have clarity and I'm not doing that anymore, I feel like I have a lot more energy. So, and I've been getting a lot more done too. So, do you want to add anything?
Part of the fear around making the wrong decision is, since we're talking about possibilities, once you start down a path with a certain possibility, other possibilities that you might have had open are no longer available, because when you chose a direction and other possible directions closed. So, what if I picked a different direction? I picked the wrong direction. And so, as Yvonne was saying, it gets into that abundance thinking, where we realize that closing off decisions doesn't really make the world less abundant. That in any decision that we make, there is still a potential to find fulfillment and excitement. Mm-hmm. And that lessens our fear of making a wrong decision.
Yeah. So I still want to do some extra exercises around, like some brainstorming, different possibilities, and so on and so forth, and see where that leads. But I also wanted to share something that like a realization that I had today. It had to do with reading this novel, The Martian, by Andy Weir. Because
he doesn't look like a Martian. He looks like an actor.
Well, it's a story about a character named Mark Watney, which is played by Matt Damon in the movie The Martian, and he gets stranded on Mars, and so his situation is pretty hopeless. But what I found really interesting about the novel and this particular character is the way that he approaches his problems. To me, it was like today I just like had this huge awakening. It was like revolutionary, because what's unique about it is he doesn't look at the whole problem. And actually that's really beneficial to his well-being, because if he did look at the whole problem, he would probably realize that his situation was hopeless and he would just give up. You know, he would just sink in despair. And then he wouldn't have the energy or even the state of mind to begin to solve his problems. So what's interesting about him is that his mind doesn't work that way. He doesn't, take the whole future or the whole panorama of a situation and think that that's reality. He just looks at the first thing that's in front of him. And the first thing that's in front of him when the novel starts is that he has to get from where he is, lying outside in his EVA suit, which has a leak, to inside the HAB, which is a protected environment. So he accomplishes that task first. Then, he starts to work on, then he has to sew up his side because he got cut. And it's just like each step of the way, he's just trying to solve the problem that's in front of him. But it's strategic. It's not like it's random. He has a direction, which is first to survive and second to get off Mars and back to Earth. So, he just solves each problem that's in front of him toward that goal. He doesn't worry, like, for example, when he's trying to figure out his food problem, he doesn't try to figure out how am I going to come up with enough food on Mars to survive for the rest of my life, for example. And even when he does try to think about, can I just survive for 4 years, he realizes, no, I don't have enough supplies to last for 4 years. So he just starts rationing. He just figures, I'll extend my food. Like, I don't remember how many days he had, but let's say he can extend it from 200 days to 300 days. That's still not enough if he has to last for 4 years. But at least it gives him an extra 200 days, or 100 days, not only to live, but to try to figure out and solve the problem. And I was blown away by that. It had never even occurred to me in life, or at least not consciously, to approach my problems that way, So, so that was a huge awakening for me, and has really, really changed my attitude toward, I would say, life in general. It's a way of approaching life. And I think that some of the things that that way of looking at life incorporates is, first of all, it's more in the present moment. Because, like I said, he couldn't solve the problem of his life, and couldn't even necessarily solve the problem of the next 4 years. But he was able to at least solve the problem of how can I extend my food supply. That was the first thing. If I get a little more time, maybe I can use that time to solve the next problem, and on and on and on. So it's much more oriented toward the present moment and just looking at what's in front of you, as opposed to trying to create security for your entire life. And to me, this is something that I began looking at years ago, because I used to have this attitude where I had to know where my life was going for at least 2 years. I had to have it all planned out. I like to go out even further than 2 years, but I had to at least know 2 years. If I didn't have that, I felt such an intense level of anxiety, I couldn't even function. So over time, when I became an entrepreneur, and I didn't always know, because, as an entrepreneur, especially starting out, you don't always know where your next paycheck is coming from, because you don't have a regular paycheck. You have to create your paycheck. And sometimes you have to create it every month, sometimes every week, sometimes every day, literally. And so I had to learn how to be comfortable with uncertainty, and to think more in terms of the present moment, and to learn to trust. And so that's more and more, that's what I've learned to do, is to trust that divine providence will take care of me. And I think that's the kind of the way that he is looking at life. And that's ultimately, I think, why he's actually able to survive, to get off Mars and to get back to Earth and to live out the rest of his life on Earth. So I don't know if anyone else like finds that that way of looking at life as intriguing as I do. But consider, like, he was an astronaut, and a botanist and an engineer, and a lot of, like, to become an astronaut is one of the most difficult jobs to apply for. There's such a rigorous application process for astronauts. And then once you are accepted into a program, you know, you have to go through so many testing processes and then training. And, you know, it takes years and years and years before they even get off this planet. So any step along that way, if there is, usually it's more often weaknesses in their way of thinking, their way of interacting with the world, because they're intelligent, healthy people to begin with. So in general, like if they need to learn something, you know, like if they need to learn how the mechanics of the ship or things like that, they have the intelligence to be able to learn it. It's more about their way of relating to life, because being in such a small space, they if they have psychological weaknesses, they won't be able to withstand the rigors of living in space. So, so to me, the personality that Andy Weir created in this character, Mark Watney, was actually very much, I think, in alignment with the actual kinds of personality types that that you would see in an actual astronaut. Someone who is extremely resourceful, really good at problem solving, not just because they're intelligent and creative, but because they believe they can solve problems. You know, they start out fundamentally with the confidence that they have the capacity to solve their problems, no matter how difficult, and that they have a sense of trust that things will work out. And without that, I think it becomes, you know, then if you don't have that, you can often fall into a victim mode because you don't believe you have the capacity to solve your problems and move forward. So do you want to add anything to that?
We must trust. We must trust. We must trust. No, I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay.
But I do have something to say.
Okay.
Which is what you're talking about, which is attending to the specific and detailed task at hand, is exactly like requests in nonviolent communication, where they have to be specific, doable, time-related, you know, something that you can accomplish. When you're doing a 2-year plan or a 5-year plan, you are engaging in the same part of our being that knows how to daydream. And all of this abstraction about what has to happen. And then you can abstract about how I'm going to make this happen and what the pitfalls might be. And really what you're doing is you're interacting. It might create tension, anxiety, duress, and the phone is ringing, but we just turned it off. That was the task at hand. The thing about it is that really what you're doing is when you have the long plan like that and you have anxiety about how you're not going to accomplish it and all of that, is you're interacting with your own imagination. You're not interacting with physicality, which is where stuff manifests and becomes. So that's why people talk about grounding. And that's when we talk about potentials, possibilities, we talk about manifesting. What we're talking about is bringing things into physical existence. So physical existence is immediate. It lives in and through your body. And I think that's all I have to say, but it really does remind me a lot about requests in NVC.
Okay. So I'm going to tie this back to what we started with in the beginning of this video about getting clarity. And clarity goes really back to week 2 with a sense of identity. Knowing who you are, knowing what matters to you, knowing what you value, knowing what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. When you have that kind of clarity, then you can open yourself up to possibilities, and it becomes actually fairly easy to make decisions because you start with that clarity.
There's another really important component of this about the we must trust part when you talk about trust. Is trust takes courage. So whatever you're aspiring toward, whatever you're wanting to accomplish with your actions, at some level, somehow, it has to be something you really care about. It has to be something very aspirational. It really, really matters because that's what summons the courage.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, there's always something that matters to us. And that's what we're trying to get clarity about, because we might say, like, for example, I want to write a book, and that really matters to me. And yet, if I don't see myself actually sitting down and writing, then there's something else that matters to me. And it might be something like, I need to feel safe and secure. But in NVC, what we do is, instead of judging, like in saying, well, I said I was going to write and I'm not writing, and instead of judging that and saying there must be something wrong with me, why can't I follow through on the things I say I want or that matter to me, actually looking at what is the yes behind the no. So what is it, the thing we are actually saying yes to? If what we're saying yes to is a sense of safety and security, then that's where the focus needs to be, you know. And if it takes 52 weeks to finish week 1 of the Artist's Way, which is recovering a sense of safety, or if it takes 104 weeks, you know, or whatever.
I only thought I signed up for 84 days, 104 weeks. Holy shit, 104 weeks, that's 728 days.
Yes, but the whole thing is we're trusting, right? We're trusting. And so.
But I want to know.
Well.
I want to know. How can you trust what you don't know? How can you know what to trust?
Here's the thing, David. You know, like with NVC, it's funny because we say it's so simple and yet it's so complex. With NVC, when you get clarity about your needs, let's say a need for safety, and you really, really focus on that need and the beauty of that need, and you hold it and you cherish it, in that moment, you're going to meet that need because you've truly, truly honored that need. And then it probably won't take 52 weeks. But the thing is, we don't need to judge how long it takes. We just need to trust that it will happen when it's ready to happen. So anyway, I wanted to go back to this idea about getting clarity. You know, that's what Julie Cameron was talking about in week 2, the sense of identity, getting a clear sense of who we are and what we value. And when we have that clarity, then it's easy to make decisions. And also because we're not afraid, we're trusting. We're trusting that whatever decision we make will lead us in a direction that will be just as life-affirming as the other direction. Because, especially if we're coming at it from the attitude of a warrior and knowing and trusting that all outcomes are equal. It's just like everything brings us back to the present moment. Everything brings us back to the here and now. To listen to our needs brings us back to the here and now. To trust brings us back to the here and now. To know that all outcomes are equal brings us back to the here and now. And that clarity of knowing who we are and what we value brings us back to the here and now and grounds us in the present moment. So every single one of these teachings that we talk about, that's what they're doing. They're just bringing us back to the present moment and letting the present moment be okay and fully embracing it. And then from that point, when we're fully present, then we just naturally move forward. And so with each decision, you just keep moving forward. There doesn't need to be a sense of regret. Like, you might mourn. We learn mourning in NVC, but it's not a judgmental thing. It's just an acknowledging. I feel some sadness and loss about the direction I didn't go in, and yet I keep moving forward. So I go through my mourning, and then I go and move forward. And we just keep doing it day after day after day. Just like Mark Watney and The Martian. Just do the next thing you're called to do, then move forward. Well, I feel pretty complete on that topic. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay. Alrighty, so I hope that was illuminating for you. And I hope that if you haven't yet subscribed, that you'll subscribe to this channel, that you'll like the video and share with your friends and family and social media, and ring the bell for notifications. And also, if anything we talked about in this video brought up some questions or something that you want to share, please put your comments in the space below. And we will look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
The space below.
Bye-bye, everyone.